So welcome everyone to the WORX TechTalk podcast, where today we are being joined by none other than the Mike Cardwell and Milan up in New South Wales. Milan, how's the weather?
Pretty good. Today, nice and sunny, a little bit humid, but it's looking pretty good. Pretty good. How about you guys?
If only you were here in Melbourne.
Where it's overcast and just slightly less humid.
So today we're back on Tech Talk. We've got the band together by popular demand, of course. And we're going to be talking about some things, in particular, two words that drive me absolutely nuts. One being sustainability and the other one being resilience. The reason why they drive me absolutely nuts because I see them getting overused and abused in our industry. So, Mike, I'm going to hit you first to see how resilient you are.
Well, you say sustainability, and I look at that beautiful plant in Milan's background there, and I think, sustainability, and we're talking about the environment and everything green and everything like that. Is that what we're talking about? Is that what you mean? Or
that's normally what's getting, beat around when we're talking about polished concrete. But I talk about something that keeps on coming up, not necessarily directly, that keeps on coming up in our Monday morning meetings where we talk about all the news that comes to us from the market. And as far as sustainability and resilience, I'm really talking a whole lot more about the sustainability, resilience, and I guess the viability of the industry. So sustainability in this conversation would be more about, an industry that can not just survive, but it can thrive as well. And I guess the reason why this has come up is really just because of the questions that we keep on being asked. And I guess it's just, for us, it's something that we enjoy talking about because we look at the industry. Of course, we don't have to see it from from 2 feet away at looking at scratches all day. That's part of what we do, but a lot of what we do is get to see this from a bit more of a broader perspective.
And when you say a broader perspective, I think it's important. People would no doubt assume, but that's not just here locally in Australia. I mean, this could be in the US or the EU, or it could be sort of really anywhere, couldn't it?
Or in Sydney.
Could be. I mean, I guess correct me if I'm wrong, what we're going to look at is the industry as a whole, not just the process, what we're doing. Yeah. We're going to unpack everything that takes around from getting the jobs to executing the jobs to executing the contracts, all that sort of stuff. What does that look like for longevity and sustainability as well?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then we might even break out into some numbers later on, Milan, if you get excited.
We'll see where the conversation takes us, but I like my numbers. So on paper, though, don't get me to do maths in my head, but on paper, I could do it.
Well, Mike has already handled the sustainability question, Milan. I'm going to hit you with resilience and context of this conversation.
Okay.
Well, did I really answer the sustainability? I guess, yeah. Obviously, we're not talking about the environment. We're talking about the industry and business sustainability within the industry, just to be specific about it there. But yeah, Millsy, go.
I guess resilience in the industry, it's really a stress test on the industry itself, but also the businesses involved or the contractors involved to make this industry as a whole. So as we know, in the market, we're going to have those really flourishing years where, work's coming out of every corner, but then there might be economic downturns out of our control. And how we set up to proceed forward, what is our differentiator? So how resilient is your business to the downward trends, upward trends, etc.? So that's what I see as resilience being in this industry. Mm-hmm. How well stress tested is your business?
Yeah. Okay. So is it? I mean, it is important to be to have your business stress tested too, right? Because you talk about when the industry is flourishing, and if we have a look at the last 30 years of the industry, this is cyclical, and you can't come into the industry when it's flourishing and expect that that's how it's always going to be. So if you want to build a sustainable business, then it actually needs to take the entire cycle into perspective when you're building that business and going, okay, how do we ride this wave? Because it's going to have its ups and downs. And I guess what we've been experiencing a bit, the questions that we've been getting is guys basically just saying, this is what I'm being asked to do, but it's not making any sense to my business and the way that I've built it. And the question is always like, okay, cool. How did you build the business? When did you build it? What was the expectation? And it's kind of been built on one particular phase of the cycle. So we're in a different phase of the cycle right now, and people are starting to feel that. And that's now we're being, those businesses are being pressure tested. Millsy, Mike, what are some of the things that people are saying to you that's making them feel that pressure?
I can kick off this one from a Sydney-based. Sydney is a very competitive market, as we know. The cost of living is one of the highest in the country. We know that. So the contractors have external pressures to be executing jobs quickly and to a price point. So a lot of the conversation now is turning to price. Builders are approaching the contractors and are basically getting multiple quotes. They're starting a bidding war essentially with different contractors and seeing who will offer the lowest price. Not what are you getting for that price, but literally just working to a price, which is a bit of a dangerous territory because a whole lot of things can go wrong in that scenario, not just for the contractor, but for the builder as well or the end client. So that's where I see a lot of the pressures coming from at the moment. It's a lot of price driven.
Yeah, definitely. And look, I absolutely agree with that for Victoria and that sort of thing as well. And I would say in other states as well. And the cost of living and everything is absolutely coming into it, and maybe contractors being, they're always guilty of it, but also just trying to hang on to existing contracts with builders and things like that, and maybe doing different jobs that they wouldn't normally necessarily do, and competing heavily in that aspect as well, which, as you say, sort of doing whether it's prep grinding or surface polishing or whatever it might be, that's a bit of a different thing for them to branch into, but they're really wanting to hang on to that client, and they're sort of pushing hard to do that. And then when you're doing that also at a price point, it doesn't leave much room for error or as you say, Milan, if there's if they are pushing into those different aspects that they don't normally do, and it's at a price point, then and if something does go wrong, then there's not much margin for error, literally margin, I guess, left for anything like that. So it can put people in a bit of an awkward position.
I can imagine. Not a position that you want to find yourself in. And I guess the phase of the market that we see ourselves in is when it's concrete polishers and grinders are not unique in this. We know that the industry has basically softened or shrunk as far as the availability of work. If you look at the pipeline, if you look at the approval rates on building applications and that sort of stuff, they're significantly down. And that just tells you that, okay, there is less work available. And what I find really interesting is that there seems to be this idea that you have to lower your price to guarantee that you're going to get work. And I think it's almost like we've been conditioned or even taught this from, I guess, a whole bunch of different areas, in that there's been a big shift from everyone across the industry experiencing costs increasing, and so there's always, of course, the first thing you want to do is reduce the cost, protect the business. So you see a lot of introduction of things like softwares and that type of stuff to help manage, and AI to help manage some of those costs and reduce them, which, I know Milan would love geeking out over. But it also means that when builders in particular are looking for contractors, the only thing that they're looking for is the things that are captured in the software or in this process of ticking a box. And at the end of the day, it's basically coming down to what's the lowest price here. And so, Milan, you were talking before about, okay, I've got to do this particular project. Mike was talking about this before. We've got to do this particular project. Now we're doing the same process. We're given the same thing, but we've done it with a narrower margin, and therefore we can't, there is no margin, if you like, for error either. And for me, my concern with that type of environment is what it does to your business. It's also what it does to the industry when everyone from the building companies down and from the owners are working on these paper thin margins. Because the other thing is, you get this thing that I love that builders are doing a lot at the moment that I hear. I'm not accusing anyone, but I hear this. It might not be happening at all. But it's like this bid sniper approach that contractors are sitting there going, well, apparently this project goes in 2 days, but it hasn't even been let yet. We don't even know who's got it. And then you've got this bidding all the way down to the last moment before the tenders close, where the builders are just basically going, is that your best price? Is that your best price? And even a little bit of, hey, Mike, this is the price I got from the other two guys. Can you sharpen your pencil? After they've already done that to the other guys. And then, that's always done down to the last minute. And then you got 2 days to be on that project. This is not a good way to operate at all. And you're seeing this happening a great deal. And so to me, it's like, okay, cool. If this is how the industry is operating right now, as a business owner, how do you protect yourself in this type of scenario? Because you're almost being taught the same thing. Everything for me now, when I go, okay, cool, this is how I need to operate my business because these are the pressures that I'm getting from the outside. So now what I've got to do is similar types of behaviors. And that, I think, is probably, and it's an easy trap to fall into. I see that all the big guys are doing this, but have a look around and look at how many big guys, right, if you like, being building companies that have collapsed in the last 2 years. All of them that have collapsed have had this type of cultural behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at that and go, well, that's what we're going to do now, what path are you setting yourself up on?
Yeah.
For me, that's red flag. That's when you got to go, okay, what are we doing that's like that? What are we got to get rid of? How are we going to build this to get through this cycle? And to me, the game has changed. The market used to be around about 60% residential and 40% commercial. Currently, it's around about 70% commercial and about 30% residential. If you built a company, a contracting business that was based on that residential type of work, you got different type of workers, you got a different margin that you're working with, and now you're chasing the business that's available, which is in commercial. And builders know that a lot of people are chasing these same jobs. What are you doing to protect yourself in this phase of the cycle?
So you've got a declining market.
Mm-hmm.
So the pool's smaller. Let's say residential, the pool's smaller. You mentioned that the approval rates are a lot less. So you've slimmed your price down to meet a certain, I guess, price from a builder, let's say.
Yep.
So your margin is less. Therefore, you need to get more volume of work to get the same bottom line as you would previously, but now the pool's smaller. So how do you get more volume when the pool's smaller? You've dropped your price. It's a pretty tough spot to be in.
And you mentioned going, residential pushing into commercial. What about the other way? If you're commercially based and then, you've got to try and sort of start adapting and being able to do residential.
That's a tough one.
That's going, I think that's probably considered to be maybe harder to do. It's, as I say, to push the other way could be harder again.
Yeah, I agree. So, Milan, what are the answers, man? Because this is all going to come down to numbers, and Mike and I, we only brought sales spin. That's kidding.
Well, I'm not kidding. When we're talking sales and selling yourself and things like that, I've sort of got some notes around that. But Millsy, that could lead into the importance of that sort of thing for some figures you've got for us. What did you find?
Well, okay. So if our, let's say, margin is lower purely based on price, we've got to find other avenues where we're going to be more efficient. So technically, all right, if our margin is lower on a 5-day project, the only way we're going to get more money out of that project is by reducing the time that we're on site.
Efficiency.
Right? Efficiency, correct. Efficiency, productivity, that's one avenue, right? So you see a lot of contractors will be like, oh, I've cut myself short, the price I've submitted, now I've got to cost save everywhere else. But productivity is one of the things that I feel like gets overseen very, very easily. Now, if I told you, if you lost 2.5 minutes per hour, right? How much would that potentially equate to throughout a year of additional earning capacity? Like I've got an example here, which I've written down, which I can run you through, but 2.5 minutes in a working day doesn't seem like much, does it?
No. 2.5 minutes in an hour or a day? Sorry.
In an hour. So 20 minutes in a day. So let's say we do an 8-hour working day, 2.5 minutes is going to add up to 20 minutes.
So there goes my 20-minute lunch break. Is that what we're getting to? Or
no more smokers for you, Mike. No, but what I'm getting to is 2.5 minutes on site is really easy to lose through inefficiencies.
Give me some examples.
I'll give you an example. Every time you stop the vacuum to change a bag, so let's say, perfect example in a commercial setting, every time you stop that vacuum to drop a bag and change it, and your grinder isn't operating, you're losing time. How much is a bag change?
That's probably like that's going to be closer to like 2 minutes in every 15 if you're hauling. So,
yeah, the reason I kept it so low because 2.5 minutes doesn't sound like much, but you will lose way more time in 2.5 minutes, but you won't even realize that you're losing time on little things where throughout the day that you could improve on, right? So when you're changing a bag, it could take 2 minutes there. So if you're doing 10-minute bags or less, then you're wasting way more than 2.5 minutes an hour. What? You're probably wondering, okay, what's this 2.5 minute, right? So if we're looking to be more efficient and more productive, what I'm getting to is, okay, we're not reviewing what we have in place. We're automatically going, I'm going to go for the cheapest tool. I'm going to go for the cheapest equipment. I'm going to go cheap everywhere without realizing that that's actually potentially costing you more money because you've slimmed down on that margin because you agreed to a lower price. So what I'm getting to okay, So if I've gotten a tool, for example, that's less efficient, and it's only a marginally less efficient, so 2.5 minutes, for example.
Marginally slower.
Yeah.
Marginally slower tool, yep.
Yeah. Let me work through the maths with you, because this is all going to be really, really confusing. And it might make more sense where the opportunities lie. Okay? So just want to get people thinking in a slightly different way, right? And if you're confused, you can call me and I'll explain it in a different way. All right. So if I'm losing 2.5 minutes per hour in an 8-hour working day, that adds up to 20 minutes productivity every day. So no, we're not going to cut lunch break. We're not going to cut out the smoko, whatnot. We're going to look at efficiencies. Okay, so what does 20 minutes a day look like over the course of a 48 working weeks in the industry? Okay. So we lose about 80 hours a year if we're losing 2.5 minutes every hour. So one additional bag change will be your 2.5 minutes, right? So if I take the 80 hours, right, and we say, okay, 80 hours, how many square meters can we do in 80 hours of finished floor, right? So would it be fair to say that we're going to do about an additional 5 square meters for every 20 minutes that we lose every single day of finished floor? It's not a big area, 5 square meters.
Mm-hmm. Finished floor.
Finished floor, yeah. So this is, let's say we're doing full exposure for argument's sake, and we'll take it up to a 400 grit of actual finished area, 5 square meters. If we were doing 5 square meters on its own, it's obviously going to be longer than 20 minutes. But on a large project, additional 5 square meters, you could probably smash out in 20 minutes, no problem. Throughout the steps.
Mm-hmm.
Am I losing you here, or are you with me?
No. We're all good for the moment.
Yeah. Do you have a question, Josh?
Well, I think Josh is saying you're undervaluing your meterage rate, but I think he's purposely doing that to exacerbate the end result.
No, I'm writing another scenario in parallel.
Oh, right.
Okay. At the same time,
okay.
Right.
All right.
So, sorry, what was it? Was how many square meters per hour are you basing this on?
So, what I'm basing this on
5 hours. Five square meters in 20 minutes.
5 square meters in 20 minutes, roughly. Yeah.
Finished floor.
Okay, so the average was on a commercial for a very long time. On a commercial project, what do we work towards? 80 square meters, right? Of finished floor a day.
Per operator.
Yeah. Okay. So if we were to divide those 80 by 20.
By 20, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, by 8. How many square meters do we get in an hour?
20 per hour.
Yeah. So 5 in 20 minutes is pretty conservative.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
If we're going at that rate.
Okay, the numbers check out.
Yeah.
And I get that
I should have known.
I get that you're being very conservative and being so conservative, what you finish up at is conservative. And, if anything, it might be more, not less than what you're actually talking about. And also we're talking about one person as well.
That's right. One operator. One grinder, one operator. Correct. Yeah. So if we're, so I guess to simplify it, so if we're losing the 20 minutes a day, additional 20 minutes is 5 square meters, being conservative, right? If we have 240 working days, which is your 48 weeks, you still have 4 weeks of holiday time, get the camper van out. 5 square meters a day times the 240 working days.
Mm-hmm.
How many additional square meters have I lost a year? Potentially, all because I've lost 2.5 minutes in an hour.
I bet you've got this written down.
Yeah. How'd you know?
What is it? Tell me.
Tune in next week and we'll give you the answer by the time I've worked it out on a whiteboard.
No, it's 1,200 square meters of completed floor a year.
Wow, that's a big job.
That you're
At $100.
Yeah, let's say this is not the market rate. I just did $100 because it's easy to calculate with round numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So 1,200 times 100 is
120 grand.
120 grand of potential additional earning capacity we lost, all because we were losing 2.5 minutes every hour changing a bag, or my diamonds were less efficient, or the operator didn't pick up on the diamonds that they were glazed, or whatever it might be.
If
It's
you're talking
very
commercial,
easy.
it could be the fact of having or not having a separator.
This is
changing commercial.
This is how much your nose picking habits costing you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
While you were doing this, Milan, I actually did the SCS. So the scenario that I did in parallel to you here, where you can save a bit more money again, was based on the 6 to 8 minutes per hour. So if we're doing, like a 10 or 15 minute bag changes, I've gone 6 to 8 minutes per hour. If you ran a separator and a radio control machine, so if you're still doing manual bag changes on a machine that you have to shut down, and you've got you don't have a radio control machine, so you're pushing it. So that means you have to switch the machine off, go over the dust extractor, do everything manually. Basically, on those numbers, we're looking at around about 4,480 square meters that you're giving up.
Yeah,
annually. That's based on the same working days as yours. So go to a radio control machine and a separator with a chamber on it, and stop picking your nose, and you start making a lot of money.
Yeah, you could be more efficient, more productive with little changes in your operation or your fleet, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what a lot of contractor mindset is, okay, I've given this cheap price. Now, for whatever reason that you've done that, they automatically is like, all right, what can I cut out just to meet that margin, not realizing I'm also cutting out productivity or efficiency. So it's like, oh, I've saved up front, but I've also jeopardized how productive I am, because the real cost is at the end of the project. It's not at the start. And you say this quite often is, okay, are you looking to buy cheap or are you looking to make more money? Two different things, right? So I guess it's just a mindset shift, or what we can start looking at, because when it's raced down to the bottom on just price, how much is it really costing you dropping your price and then dropping all the other things that you might be dropping?
Yeah, I agree. And with what you said just then it's a mindset shift. And the reason why it's a mindset shift is because everything around you is saying reduce, and pull back. However, in order to maximize your yield on the projects that you do have, you've actually got to be as efficient as possible. And how do you do that? It's like saying, someone tell me who is the best football team, like AFL right now?
Well, it's debatable.
Who is it, Mike?
But I guess Brisbane Lions won the flag last year, so I guess you'd have to the flag being the grand final.
Okay.
Unlike anywhere else in the world, we have the normal competition in the year, and then we have a finals period, and then someone wins the grand final, which means they win the lot. So that was Brisbane last year.
So let's say, for instance, this year Brisbane comes back with a new team and they want to increase their, the sponsorship's not coming in as big of a budget as last year. So what they do is they go back out to market and get a few cheaper players. Actually, all of them. They get everyone from the bottom 10.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to win the grand final this year, or is that just going to make them look like Essendon?
Wow, low blow. Jeez.
Sorry, Mike.
How do you come back from that, Mike?
Guess there's no coming back from that.
Sorry.
Terrible.
You just can't do that. And like anyone who's a fan of sports or anything like that would see that fallacy straight away. Even if it was that the teams that are winning in the Grand Prix and the ones that are attracting the best sponsors, getting the best drivers, are the ones who are investing in the right equipment. But my question is, when it comes to your own team and your own performance, why are you doing the opposite of what you're seeing is what's being successful out there? I find that really interesting because, you said it was a mind shift before. And I truly believe it is a mind shift because you're operating from a scarcity mentality.
Yeah.
And the guys who are winning the elite sports are not operating from a scarcity mentality, and that's why they're winning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I was just going to say, and going back to the start of the conversation, how we're going to look at this as a whole package, not just what we do on site. It's I lost my train of thought. That's how confused I am.
I think we're talking. We mentioned about bag changing, and we mentioned about tooling and products, but I mean also obviously your team as well, which is what you were sort of alluding to, and that is that there's no point having some inexperienced people operating and things like that. I mean,
just because they're cheaper.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's right. So that's there's a lot of different aspects that sort of pour into this whole thing that we're looking at. I suppose it's not just products or time. It can be a lot of different factors, which is a big thing to look at, but also good to look at in the sense that you've got a lot of opportunities. A lot of opportunities, whether it be tooling or chemicals or machinery or staff or there's a lot that you can really delve into and look at, and maybe a bit of trial and error as well. Hopefully more wins than losses with changes you make.
Oh yeah, well that's also an interesting comment that you make too, though, right? I mean, Milan's talking about the efficiency losses in upfront costs. I'm trying to find something that's cheaper because the project has less money in it, so I'm going to try and find a cheaper tool, which is going to give me lower performance. It doesn't have to be the tool; it can be anything that you're choosing to use to produce that floor with. I'm going to try and save some money here, but that's going to lower my productivity level. So it's going to hit my efficiency, and that's going to hit my margins. And what you're talking about is also a really concerning one too, is with the trial and error, is how much money have you got for making trials now too? Because they cost you money. Doing a trial, that also costs you money, and that's much harder to recoup. Because often if you're doing a trial and you're paying your guys to do this and it doesn't come out the way that you need to, you've got to redo it. So there's an additional cost on top of that. So even then, you have to be able to use something that's proven and that can show that it can deliver on what your requirements are, because there's a few things that never change here. And that is the cost that you have 365 days a year. And you can't afford it to be changing the dynamics too much of your process, trying new things, trying something else that's going to have a lower upfront cost and affect your bottom line. You've got to know these before you start playing with it. What does it have to do? Say, for instance, you talked about trialing something, Mike. My suggestion would be, if you are looking at trialing something for your business, and I think where the biggest gains are always going to be in this game is always going to be in the things that slow you down the most, right? That's the easiest place to make them. So the lowest hanging fruit is going to be that first cut and your transition tool. If you know what your first cut speeds are, expectations, and you know what your transition speeds are and expectations, if you're going to try something, don't try that thing until it's consumed. Try it for an hour. And if it doesn't beat what you've got, go straight back to what you had because you haven't got time to lose.
Yeah. Cut bait, as the fishermen say, cut bait and put something else on that's gonna work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's important too to know your benchmarks. Then, without knowing it, you're just winging it. We'll go back to, I guess, that sports scenario. You don't get a new player and then just chuck him in the game and trial him in a live scenario. There are processes in place of vetting, I guess, your final product is going to deliver a game-winning performance. Right? Same goes, I guess, with any business, no matter what industry you're in. If you have a designated, I guess, trial period, let's call it, and you can only trial it against hard numbers. If you don't know what you're trialing up against, what your benchmarks are, well, then you're just going to hope for the best. And this is what I guess ties into that mind shift. Is all right. Everything is connected in a sense in terms of productivity, right? So everything has to be immeasurable. If it's not immeasurable, it's just going to be very difficult to track. You're just going to wing it. It's a cheaper price, but what margin did I give up? So price and margin, we just got to separate, right? Because at the end of the day, it's the bottom line, which is very important.
How do I know price and margin? I paid the bills last month.
Well, get a really good accountant if you are not inclined to know what your true margins are.
And there's going to be a law of averages. It's not going to be just a set. This is what I get out of this tool every job. Obviously, there's going to be different concrete and things like that. But if you've got a good average that you work on and something's well out of tune, then it's going to show.
Yeah. I guess question is, how does this even tie into sustainability?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because people are probably tuning in and going, okay, they're talking about all these numbers and things like that. How are we tying it to sustainability? Because, let's say the market does shift around. And if you're not prepared for it, that's also going to cost you when everything is, approval rates are up for new dwellings, contracts are, being handed out left, right and center. There's going to be an effect there now as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, sustainability is being able to, ensure that when that time comes, when, builders pick up the phone, your number still rings and you can still offer those services, right? So sustainability is that the integrity of the market in the product remains, and that, Milan, whatever you do in New South Wales with your grinding company is going to affect me here, right? That's just the nature of what we do. We're not electricians. We're not plumbers. We're manufacturers in our own right. And whatever you do with the way that you manufacture the product and the way that you manipulate the price and the way that you sell your product to meet price demands is going to affect my business down here. So sustainability means that you're building a business that is going to be sustainable, continue to go on and provide for your customers. At the same time, meaning that Mike and I still get to stay in business as well, running our business, because the things that you're doing have a knock-on effect as well. We all have the same pressures. We've all got the the overhead costs. We've all got the need to service our equipment, to replace our equipment, to train our people in order to ensure that we're building a sustainable business.
Mm-hmm.
And a resilient one that's going to be able to get through, the tough times and the good times.
So what are some of the things that you would say, we're talking a lot about the problems. So what are some solutions? What are some things that you could be doing once you've worked out your figures and your averages and it's a bit of an open-ended
Hey, Mike,
question.
have you got all day?
Well, I know. And look, that's what I said. I guess the sales side of things comes in and I've got notes written here, things like, point of difference. What's Milan's point of difference with his business as opposed to our points of difference with our business, which could be, running air scrubbers and environmental or safety or obviously, then there's the obvious ones like quality of work and things like that. So, out comes the sales hat and, you've got all this laundry list of things as have you got all day. Well, I'm tipping either the retail client or the builder definitely would not have all day for you to try and get these points across.
Absolutely.
So you've got to be pretty spearheaded about it, and I guess a little bit to a point in your face about it, and have some real tangibles to throw around. And there've got to be things that I suppose are going to help you hold your rate, as opposed to lowering the rate. And that again, those sorts of things can be the professionalism of the company and previous works, previous works with an existing builder or an existing client, or if you've been referred to someone, that sort of thing. And you can only fight the good fight. I've also written here, the grass is always greener, which, I have heard of customers of ours that have sort of stood fast and stood strong and lost a particular builder, if you like. And, a month or two later, you pull up to site to see them and you see the billboard out the front. You think, oh, back on with these guys. And the grass was greener, but they soon found out that all these things that you mentioned, which consciously or subconsciously are now in their mind, that they're not seeing out of this person that was $10 a metre cheaper. And you've kind of maybe highlighted those things. And, they've now sort of come back. Maybe not at your rate, but maybe something's been discussed that's in between, and it's called negotiating for a reason, and maybe there's a happy medium that's been struck. But what are those some of points of difference do you think that that people could sort of concentrate on, guys? I mean, I sit in the office here or out on the road or in the van and seeing customers and that sort of thing, but you two have actually been on site running businesses and that sort of thing. What are some of the points of difference that you think could sort of help people out there concentrate on? I suppose change is a big word, but certainly look at and that sort of thing there.
Is the question, what's the point of difference to stand out from another company, what's the point of difference internally?
Both. I guess you've got to look internally, but then you've got to project it to when you're selling your business to win a particular project above and beyond someone else, another contractor when they are, shopping price. Then you need those points of difference, but they've got to be, I think, pretty spearheaded, pretty in your face type things. That again, win or lose, the particular client goes away with those sorts of things in their head. That these are things that you should be looking at and considering when it comes to our trade and our industry. And another thing I've written down here is the only way we can do all these things is by educating. The client or the builder or whoever it might be, who isn't from the industry and is just looking at the dollars and cents.
Yeah.
Did we have to answer all of those?
I said, what are some?
In that particular order?
What are some things that sort of spring to mind that could be a point of difference for a company that they could gear themselves up to be something?
It's going to be different for every business, and I'll tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, not everyone started their business in 2000, and not everyone got into the industry in the same way. And then even just your own personality and your approach to the industry is going to be, it's very individual. And for me, I think that if you're running a business today and you're feeling like you're trying to put out fires everywhere, be all things to all people in order to keep the wheels turning, you've really got to recognize the value of stopping for maybe a day and having a really good look, a real good self-assessment of your own skills and your team skills, and then aligning what you have with where they're best going to be applied. Okay, so knowing which games you can win and playing those ones, basically, with the team that you've got today. Because the last thing you want to do is try to be all things to all people, because there's no recipe for success, but the surefire way for failure is please everybody.
And when you say being all things to all people, what do you mean? Okay,
so for instance, you got into the game 5 years ago. This is a fairly typical scenario. You got into the game 5 years ago, really liked polished concrete. Your background is in a different trade. So you go out and you buy a machine, you buy a van, and you start grinding concrete, do some grind and seals, work your way into doing residential. You love the craft of it. You put on some other guys to help you because the demand was strong. And then so you brought on another guy and you taught him up, and that took, 6 months, 8 months, you got another guy. And now you're 5 years into the game and you've got 4 guys and yourself. And 2 years ago, what that team looked like was you had 2 guys on each site, you had 2 vehicles fully kitted out with equipment, and you were going out doing site visits in the morning, making sure everyone knew what they were doing. So, and then liaising with the clients on those projects. Then you had a mixture of more sales work where you were going to projects and inspecting the projects before quoting them, and then you're doing some admin in the office. Pretty typical scenario.
Mm-hmm.
What we've got now is we've still got those same guys who are working to a very high level of standard when it comes to polishing concrete, and yourself. However, the game's changed. There's nowhere near as much residential available.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going, well, I need to keep this thing going because of the way that my company is structured. I need to get a bit of work going on over here where I'm going to be doing some glue removal. I've got some work over here where I'm doing epoxy coatings. I'm doing a driveway repair over here, and I'm doing some garages and that sort of stuff. Your business, is now in survival mode. It is stretched into a whole bunch of different areas that it hasn't been before. And if your guys who have been trained for mechanically polished concrete are having issues on projects, say for instance the driveway repairs or the garages and the coatings in particular, as soon as you get a call back on those, that's a red flag for your business. You're losing profitability basically today.
Forget your 2.5 minutes, mate. It's just been 2.5 days.
Yeah. Okay.
Sort something out, reset up, fix it, pack up, get it back out.
Yeah, and your costs are the same, so your overhead costs are the same, but your daily turnover is lower on these projects, and now you've got callbacks, right? For me, this is like far out. This is a completely different business now. It seems like it only just changed a little bit. It's just all kind of crept in.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're not doing what your guys are trained for. This is not you're not operating within your core business. For me, that's like, okay, we need to stop and assess all of our strengths within our team, all of our strengths within our relationships with clients, and our sales process, because now the fundamentals of your business have shifted dramatically. Even though it seems like it's kind of the same, but it's actually dramatically different from a turnover perspective. You might be looking at, okay, I used to have one guy that was, like I said before, you got 4 guys working for you. You've got 2 machine setups, 2 vans, and that sort of stuff. One guy used to do all the detail work and the labouring, while the other guy operated the heavy grinding equipment. In the scenario where you've got the driveway repair, or the driveway restoration, or the epoxy garages and the surface prep, you don't need 2 guys to operate that anymore. They're one-man bands. So you've got double the cost on those projects, and you've got lower margin. So how are you going to make that work? You've got to make some tough decisions about how we're going to operate this business now. Are we going to reduce the size of the team? You might have to. I don't want to. Okay, well, how are you going to change the operating fundamentals of the machine, if you like, that you now have?
So hang on, I'm a human being, and now I've just lost my right-hand man that I used to have on site with me to do all the labour-intensive stuff. So I'm not happy now either.
Yeah, well, the team probably wants to stay together, because, like Milan was saying before, once things get traction again, the market gets traction again, and proper contracts get handed out for the same type of work that you cut your teeth on, you're going to want your team 100% ready to go on this stuff, right? So it's like, okay, you have to adapt. There's no doubt about it. The question is, how do you want to adapt? You've got guys who have got particular types of skills, and you've got particular types of equipment. How are you going to assess the skills, the capability of what your team can produce in a day, what equipment you have to do that, and what contacts that you have in the industry to bring in the right type of work that's going to suit your team, and what is the number that you need to be able to hit on a day-to-day basis to be able to not just survive but to thrive. So you need to know what your walk-away number is, because you've got to get used to walking away. And the reason why you've got to get used to walking away is because everyone needs to get used to walking away. When someone says, look, it's not in our budget to do that, so can you just look after us on this one? Look, if you look after us on this one, here's the classic, I'll make sure you get the next one. We'll look after you on that one. Has anyone ever had that one before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when you get that magic phone call that we were having a bit of a chuckle about before we hit record on the podcast, and that is that magic phone call, which I've had in a couple of different industries, and that is, oh no, we won that one. And it's like, uh-oh, what are we going to do now? We've gone hard, not knowing really where that walk-away figure is, or even worse, knowing where the walk-away figure is.
Yeah,
and
saw someone else's quote.
Breaking your rule and being reactive. And then that all of a sudden equates to staring at the ceiling at midnight in bed, wondering where you're going to get this extra time and money and keep the guys fed and all the rest,
Well, not only that, the scenario could be that you got that job and it's going to keep your whole team tied up for 2 weeks. But during that time, you can't actually accept a good paying job. And if you have reduced the size of your team and now you've returned to the tools to try and bring profitability back into the business, you don't have time to focus on sales, that sales funnel, and bringing work in. You kind of just got to hope the stuff's coming in, the phone's going to ring. You don't have a sales function in your business anymore if you're operating a grinder.
Get it to a point. Sorry, if you're operating, no, then you're tied up elsewhere.
Yeah.
It's going to be much harder, and you're going to be tied up to project, and once you're tied up to a project, you're losing opportunity to be on another project if your timing doesn't match.
Yeah.
So opportunity lost costs is what we're looking at.
I'll just take on the other one as well. I love stress.
I can work nights. All I ever do is lie around the house doing nothing for 8 hours.
Guys don't mind because the guys still get paid. Who's the first one that loses?
Yeah.
Well, if that's your business plan, that's fine. You're hitting all the goals then.
Yeah. Well, like you say, it's what is the business plan? You can't. We hear a lot of people operating in reaction mode at the moment, and that's what we want to see people moving away from, because you can't be resilient in that in that mindset.
Why are we having this podcast? It's because people who are our customers and our clients, but anyone in other countries or anything like that, you business owners, you go-getters, you got to win, win, win. We've got to win these quotes. It's kind of drilled into us. So get it. And that's why we're having this lengthy conversation about effectively knowing when to walk away.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't think we don't appreciate it. And we're all the same.
Absolutely.
Go get that win.
Yeah.
But if you go and get it, stop calling it a win. It's a job. It's like, well, do we want that job, or do we want that contract? Do we want, but it's did you win that one, or did you lose that one? Or it's hardwired into us. And again, if they're business owners, you go getters, and that's really appreciated. But I used to get calls. You talk about when the market is flourishing and more plentiful. I'd still get phone calls of people saying, "Hey, Mike, can you just run me through a surface polish again? I haven't done one for a year and a half or 2 years." And I'd say, "Well, why are you doing that for?" And they'd sort of go a bit quiet on the phone, and they go, "Well, I won the job." And it's like, "But have you not got much work at the moment?" "Oh, no, we're booked out for the next couple of months." And you say, "Well, why are you taking this on for?" And they go quiet again and say, "Is it a builder that you do work for?" "Yeah, he's asked if we could do this one." But to me, that's variation territory. But I've got to keep the builder sweet, and I was getting those calls when it was busy, when it was plentiful, and it still comes up because we want to win. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting point. Is when is a win a win?
Yeah, well, and I think that kind of goes back to what you were talking about too before, Milan. I talked about the assessing your team and your skills and your capabilities and what you can do. And then, Mike's talking about the reality of what contractors are up against, getting the calls from the builder. We've had a long relationship. Can you help us out on this one? We just need you, right? We get that too. That's the scenario that we're living in. And then we've got your perspective, Milan. If this is the reality that we're living in, what are we doing to adjust? Like you just told us, $120,000 a year, that if you're not doing it, you're actually losing that money. That's money you're just giving away. So what types of things are you bringing into your business, into your team, that are actually going to ensure that money is not lost? Because that means 1 out of the 4 guys doesn't have to leave. Right?
Yeah.
That's the first thing I thought of when you said 120 grand, which maybe I'm being a bit generous, but that's a salary. It's a yearly salary
with all the burden.
Yeah.
All the on costs for the employer. Yeah. So
what are you trying to say, Josh? I'm a burden. Is that what you're trying to say?
Milan, did you want to tell him, or do you want me to tell him?
This is all your territory.
It's hard to strangle someone through the screen, so
I thought if we laid out, I thought this would be a great way to set up this conversation. No. Look, I think it'd actually be good for us to drill more down on the numbers and where the opportunities are here, Milan. It's probably not. We probably don't have time for it today, because I think we could map out a bunch of areas where we could actually increase productivity, stop the bleeding, that type of stuff. We've actually got a whole lot of stuff to talk about.
Like when we say, a skilled operator. Well, I've kind of written a note here. Well, what does that look like?
Skilled in what?
Well, you know what I mean. Josh Van der Veen and Milan, what do you guys consider as being in business previously and on site and everything? Out of interest, what do you consider a skilled operator? Someone with 10 years plus experience and they know how to do this or that, or it's just interesting.
They might have sucked for 10 years.
Well,
Milan's going to want some numbers, some metrics.
Yeah, exactly right.
Measurables.
Well, yeah, I always look at that when people say, I've been doing this for 15 years. Now, I've been playing basketball since I was a kid, but I'm not a pro. So how long you've been doing something doesn't translate into good or profitable, or whatever it might be. Are you doing the correct things? What needs to be done? So to answer your question on skilled operator, I guess in our industry, for me, if I was running my own business still, I would look at somebody that can accept a scope of works, run them through the project, and they can deliver that project essentially unsupervised. Not to say that they won't have problems or queries throughout the job, but they can do 95% of the job. And then maybe there's some questions in between to come to the finish line together. That's a skilled operator. An unskilled operator is if you can't leave their site, and if you can't even, if you can only leave them for half a day, or they can get to a point in time in the process without proceeding onwards, they're not quite there. They still need training. So for me, somebody that's able to perform a task unsupervised is a trained or skilled operator, whatever that task might be, and it has to be delivered on time, on budget, etc. So there's so many elements, but yeah, essentially unsupervised.
I was going to say in the job interview, Milan, I know how to save you 2.5 minutes an hour. Just say welcome aboard.
There you go, done. You've looked at the numbers, you've looked at other things than just what's in front of me, looked at from the inside out.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. So then, Milan, we're going to talk about a whole bunch of other stuff in future podcasts, unpack this a bit more. But if you're a business operator right now and you've got multiple jobs going and you're in that, that scarcity mentality, what are you going to ask your team to be focusing on right now?
Efficiency.
And how do we know what that looks like?
Well, we're going to have to set clear standards and clear goals so everybody knows exactly what they're working towards. So the only way you're going to do that is for whatever you're doing, whether it be epoxy or whether it be grinding, prep, polishing, that all has to have a process. You're going to have to lock in a process that everybody is on board with and buy into, so they completely understand to be able to deliver to that quality, to that standard, to that budget. So I guess you're looking from the inside out. So you really need your team aligned on the same goal to be efficient, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Okay, where do we start?
Next
podcast.
I was going to say,
oh man, there's a lot of stuff. The scope needs to be, the contract needs to be really obvious. So nothing is, cloudy. It all needs to be crystal clear of what the deliverables are. Like you said, knowing when to walk away. Sometimes that's the biggest win. So as a business owner, you have the responsibility of, I know what my team is capable of. I can't send them into that on this project because I just need them to be busy and working. That's not a win in the end. All you've done is, you've won a job to be on, but you're not essentially winning at the end. Training, there's so many things that we can dive into as part of this conversation, and it might be a four-part tech talk. I'm not sure. It's going to be a pretty hefty one, but yeah, there's a lot of things we can unpack.
All right. Well, I look forward to unpacking it.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Tech Talk's back.
I can't wait to see the numbers, Milan. But this is the stuff that we enjoy, isn't it? It's looking at the problem. How do we solve it? How do we make sure that everyone comes out on top here? And that, I think that kind of reflects back on where we started, the sustainability and the resilience to make it through the tough times, but also to come out as a sustainable business and product viability in the industry. Still one of the first choices for your concrete flooring.
Yeah. You mentioned something, Mike. It's good to be back. I guess we spend a lot of time on the technical side of things of Tech Talk, and that's going to continue through the conversation. Obviously, we dug deep into some other things than the technical side of things of being on the slab, but these are all very, very important things that will lead to a better technical side execution as well. So without these fundamentals, there's nothing to execute on. There's nothing to unpack on grouting or anything like that. So this is, without this core stuff, there's no longevity or sustainability.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And, we always like comments if anyone's got any comments or questions. And you know what, maybe even some other examples of some time-saving type mathematics that Milan can look over. And if you've worked out a few different things yourself, we know there's definitely people out there. I know of a few that definitely drill down on this sort of thing. So we're not painting everyone with the same brush. We know there's some people out there that thrive on this sort of stuff as well. So yeah, definitely pop some comments down. We'll be keen to see for sure.
Thanks, gentlemen, and thank you everyone for listening. And we look forward to the follow-up after this break.
Cheers, guys.
See you next time.
Au revoir.
This show is proudly supported by WORX Plus. WORX Plus brings total solutions to all concrete grinding and polishing contractors to make it totally work for their daily operations. We hope you've enjoyed this show. Make sure to tune in each week where we're going to dive deep into all things related to concrete grinding and polishing. We're here to help you so that you can boost your outcomes on the floor.